So let me introduce everybody to Miss Maureen Burke, who, if you've been with our program for a long time, you might know has a specialty in aging in place and how to stay independent at home, as safe as possible for as long as possible. And Maureen has been practicing occupational therapy for nearly 34 years and really focuses her work on providing resources and support to those who have cognitive challenges or are living with MCI. So it's not something that she does occasionally or for fun. This is something that she has focused her work on over the past 30 plus years. She is an aging in place specialist. She works at Georgia Tech and is a guest lecturer with the Georgia Tech School of Design and Architecture, where she shares a lot of these aging in place principles. And her goal is to work with folks to improve their environments with the help of design and technology. I know Maureen and I both, we don't want anything that's not cute. So as she shares some of this stuff about kitchens, we're also going to be talking about making it look good and functional for you. And if you want to have any questions for us or reach out to us after the session, as always, this is the email empowerment@emory.edu. You can email anyone on our staff here if you have questions or want a little bit more support or resources along the way. So Maureen, it's good to be together today. Thanks for joining us for CEP Live.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I'll let you pull up your slides on how to build the best kitchen to age in place. But I'm kind of curious where this conversation started and why it's something that we are talking about at the Cognitive Empowerment Program. Can you give us a little bit of background on why this topic is one that is important for our group?
Well, I think, Megan, the biggest concern of clients, right? They want to remain at home and they want to remain independent. And so being able to prepare your own meals and kind of be safe around your kitchen is really important. And if they have sons or daughters, those sons and daughters also want to make sure that mom and dad are, eating healthy foods and not leaving the oven on, and being able to maneuver and manage as they always have. So it's kind of a balance between design and safety, I guess, is the way to put it. So.
I love that. And we really talk a lot at CEP about this like cross discipline of, we've got the occupational therapist that's talking about kitchen and home design. And what I know to be true about Maureen is even if you're not the cook at home, this is a really helpful conversation. Even if you're not preparing full meals still, having that accessibility and things being safe is still important. It doesn't rule out needing things to be in the right place for you. So I'm going to hand it over to Maureen, who's going to kind of open up a little bit more on some of these topics. And I want to remind everybody that the chat and the Q&A are open. So if you have any questions along the way for Maureen, don't hesitate to put them in the chat and we'll ask all your questions at the end of her presentation today. So thank you so much, Maureen. Take it away.
Yeah. Thanks, Megan. So, occupational therapy is kind of one of those professions where it's like, gee, do you get people jobs? What do you do? Are you a physical therapist? And so, we hear this a lot. So I'm not a teacher. Well, in a way, I guess I am, but an occupational therapist goal is to teach clients the skills of daily living so they can remain independent throughout their lifespan. And so whether that be someone who's had a stroke, for example, and has difficulty using one side of their body, we can modify the environment. We can change the environment and offer solutions and strategies and devices and equipment to keep that person independent. And that is always our goal. So even with, as Megan mentioned, mild cognitive impairment, that can be a bump on the road with regard to memory and managing certain things in the kitchen. But again, our goal is to try to keep folks as independent as possible and to just share the resources that are out there and ways to kind of make your kitchen really working for you. So as you see on the slide here, most of us, 88% of us, do want to stay at home. We want to age in place. And so there are certain things we can do throughout our house, putting grab bars in and things like that. But there's also some things in the kitchen. So we're going to talk about that specifically today. And as I said, we are trying to improve the efficiency and the safety of your kitchen. And with that mild cognitive impairment, as Megan mentioned, it's as many of you may know, it can affect certain things like memory, some planning and organizational skills, maybe judgment, decision making, and problem solving. So, generally folks with MCI are functioning pretty well, but some of those higher level thinking skills can sometimes become a little more difficult. Basically, let me just move this out of the way so I can see that slide a little bit better. So safe meal prep, it does take a lot of planning, right? So it's easy to just go pick something up quick or, throw something in the microwave that's maybe pre-made, which maybe isn't quite as healthy for you, filled with salt and that kind of thing, especially if there's diabetes or things like that involved. So Greg, who I know is a dietitian who has spoken, he promotes a diet called the MIND diet. And that's a combination of the heart healthy diet and the Mediterranean diet, involving olive oil and leafy greens, fish, sardines, whole grains, and that type of food, similar to what's on this plate. So putting a meal together like that can be pretty complicated, right? It takes a lot of organization, getting your list together, getting to the store, shopping for it, putting everything away, and then starting the meal prep. And, I say if we were all as fortunate as Oprah, we would just have a private chef putting these things together for us every night. But we don't. So we'll talk about some ways that you can thrive in the kitchen, in your own kitchen, and simplify some of the tasks, modify the way you do things in your kitchen. I'll try to give you some tips on technologies that I think might be helpful, how to organize your space a little bit better, and some certain gadgets that I really like. So kind of number one, this may seem pretty simple, but changing the light bulbs can make a really big difference in the kitchen and really throughout the house. Aging eyes see the environment differently. Our photoreceptors are the cells in our eyes, and they see color differently. And so generally, aging eyes will see the one side of the spectrum where the oranges and the yellows, those colors in reds will seem clear to us, as where the blues and the greens fade a little bit. So better lighting really everywhere in the house really is the equivalent to fewer falls. And that's what we would want to prevent. You could try some LED lights. They're low energy, some simple ones that you could put under your cabinet. We recently put some lights in the upstairs hallway, LED lights, and I am telling you, it is dramatically different. I did not expect the change of light bulbs to make that big of a difference in the hallway. You kind of don't notice it until you change it, right? So you might want to give it a try. And the other thing, we're always concerned about reducing fall risks. So lamps with cords, you really want to avoid those, especially in the kitchen area, unless they're up on a countertop and you can't trip on it. But anything on the floor could be an issue. Have any of you changed your light bulbs so far? I'm sure you've heard that that's an aging thing to do. So you can put in the chat and let us know if you have already updated your space with some bright light. So throw rugs like this one are really gorgeous. This looks like a beautiful kitchen, but we know that falls are the leading cause of injury for people 65 and older. That's kind of what America considers old, right? 65 is kind of that cutoff age. So this type of a rug is a trip hazard because the toe can get caught as you swing through and trip on it. So if you really, really want to keep your rug there, you could put a non-slip material underneath or double-sided tape to really keep it in place, but probably better yet is maybe just removing it if you're okay with that. Clearing the clutter. Well, this is this kitchen is very cluttered. It is not a picture of my own kitchen, I'll tell you that. But keeping things organized is it can be a challenge because we do need certain things on the counter. So especially a spot where we can land hot foods, right? So some tips for clearing the clutter, just trying to organize your space, and we'll get into where some of these items that we see here could be put to make a kitchen a better space to work. I'm sure you have heard this before, but just as a reminder, when cooking, it's really better to use tighter fitting sleeves versus looser clothing, which would be more apt to get caught in a flame. So ideally, in an ideal world, we want to take time to get our fruits and vegetables at the store, and then prepare them, sit and chop and wash, place them in a refrigerator, maybe chop them later, and then package and cook them. So we have those fresh vegetables and fruits ready to go. I don't really like chopping myself, so it's just a tedious chore. So what I try to do is find kind of a comfortable place to do it. So I'll get a chair, sit at the kitchen table, get the cutting board out and the knife, have a little trash can there where I can put my scraps, put on some nice music, and just try to enjoy the process. Have a couple containers so I can fill it with the vegetables and that are ready to freeze, or Ziploc bags, whatever I happen to have. A good tip is also to maybe put a date on there with your Sharpie, so you know when, or at least what month you've put those items in the freezer. And something that occupational therapists are big on are making sure that your body mechanics are operating optimally. So we use the hip to shoulder rule. And what that is trying to keep the most used items anywhere in your house, but for this talk, in your kitchen, between your hips and your shoulders. So this will avoid undue overreaching and underreaching with going down to the floor. This concept, could also be used in your shower, to have a shower caddy, so you're not reaching down to get the shampoo on the floor or turning around to get it in the back of the shower. So again, just keeping things between your hips and your shoulders. Simplifying your kitchen. I've tried to do this lately, actually, with some of these strategies. We have a lot of the same items. So like, we don't need 3 mixing cups, but it turns out I have grown children that have come back to college and moved in, moved out. So it seems like I have an excess of frying pans and an excess of different types of stirring spoons and that sort of thing. So I have tried to reduce the number of the same items, and you might try that too. It really makes a lot more space in your kitchen. You also may choose some lighter weight options, and just get rid of some of those items that you don't need. There's a great need for donation centers for different types of kitchen items. So somebody will definitely use it if you can't. Two-handled pans is a good option as well, because it distributes the weight as you're lifting and moving food. And also, if you do have some very big items, heavy items that you don't use very often, you'd want to place those on the lower shelves versus the upper shelves. So this kitchen is actually, a current kitchen design. No cabinets at all. They just remove the door so you can see everything that's behind them. So if you have trouble finding things, or you like to keep things more organized, you could remove the counter or the cabinet doors, and then you can just see what's there. Some clients with mild cognitive impairment have trouble finding where the items are, especially if they've moved to a new location. So labels could be used for that purpose, but keeping the same items together is really helpful. So like the coffee mugs are always here, the plates are here, the silverware is there. And then so after time, there becomes that pattern of memory where everyone in the house knows where things are kept. So again, labels to cabinets or drawers to help identify where things are can be helpful. Silverware drawer, mixing bowls, coffee cups, and that kind of thing. So unfortunately, some older folks tend to get sick by eating food that has expired. So the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, talks about how many older adults are hospitalized for foodborne illnesses. So I thought I should mention this and maybe give you some ideas on what you could do. One thing is just write a date of when you put items in the refrigerator or the freezer. The big items are the meats, the eggs, and seafood. Things like that should not be kept out. So they need to be refrigerated. So like summer picnics or when you're having family events and these foods are staying out more than 2 hours, they really should be tossed at that point. I have a problem with this too, because I do buy things and keep them in the freezer. So sometimes the kids will come home and say, hey, this was bought 6 months ago. But if it's a frozen package of certain meats, that is okay. It's more the stuff that is left out or kept in the refrigerator and not frozen. The bad thing is that unintended cooking is the #1 cause of house fires. And so this little face of a person is supposed to be someone who's really wide awake. So good idea to cook when you are wide awake and not late at night. Another factor that causes a house fire is the grease buildup on a stove or oven. So you want to make sure that that is cleaned after use. Good idea to keep a pan lid next to where you're cooking. So if something should flame up, you can put the lid over the top and just stop that fire and smother it right away. Also, of course, pot holders, oven mitts nearby when cooking. Using the back burners is also helpful, and turning the handle of the pot to the back of the stove so your arm doesn't bump it as you're cooking. Another tip is to stay in the kitchen while you're cooking, because it can be kind of easy to, maybe walk into the backyard, start picking some weeds or doing like that. And before you know it, it's like, oh no, it's 20 minutes past. I was supposed to take, such and such out of the oven 10 minutes ago. So using timers is a good thing. You can use a timer on your phone. You can use it on the stove, but you have to be in the kitchen. And I also have some other timers that I'll show you in a little bit. And after cooking, of course, make sure that all the appliances are turned off. Last summer, my husband and I were having some people over, and we were, prepping and getting things ready. And I was at the counter and had like a bag of chips sitting there, but also had a candle burning. And I don't know how it happened, but the candle tipped over and it set a little towel on fire. And I am telling you, this happened in a flash. Fortunately, I was able to smother it quickly. It was over, but it just amazed me, even though I've been taught this too. It really happened so quickly. So it's great to be ready for it. And I do have some simple strategies a little bit further down in the PowerPoint that we'll talk about. So we'll talk about fire prevention, a few simple technologies that some of you may already be using, and then a few specialized kitchen items that may be helpful. And let's see, do we have anything in the chat here? Let's see here.
We did have a question for you, Maureen. I'm gonna bring up from the chat. We have a viewer who is considering upgrading the kitchen and placing cabinets in an island, and wants to know if there are any other suggestions that you might have or resources you might have for those that are considering kitchen renovations or upgrades. What are your best resources for that?
Well, I think accessibility is the key. So there are certain parameters on the width of the distance between, for example, your countertop where your stove is, and then also where your refrigerator is and where your water source is. So we really want that to be minimally like 38 inches. And the reason for that is if someone needed to be in a wheelchair at some point or a walker, you want to have great accessibility around all of those surfaces, including over to the kitchen table. So, I hope that helps you a little bit, but there are several guidelines, to follow. You probably know the triangle, to have that set up with your oven and your stove and your water source. But also the widening the pathways is really important too. I think having the cooking source in an island is great. And the cabinets underneath are fine, but just be aware that that does mean a fair amount of bending to access the pots and pans or whatever you're storing under there. And it looks as though we do have some people that have said, yes, I have replaced my LED lights. Oh, that's good to hear. That's great, Mona. Way to go. Marcia, good. Way to go.
We've got
Good to
lots
hear
of
that.
those. Yeah, a lot of people are saying
Yes.
they've done the LED light thing. What we love about that is it's a simple fix, it's a simple change. It's not something you have a contractor come to do. And we also had a comment from Jim that, cooking is the thing that they're the most careful about, that sometimes they'll start cooking in the home, heat on the stove, and might get distracted and move on to something else. And there's a worry about the possibility of fire. I know this is something that many of our viewers and our population have a fear about, is that leaving the pot on the stove and stepping out and maybe getting a phone call or something's happening on the back porch in the neighborhood. So that is certainly something that we hear about very often with our viewers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And, it's difficult to change that behavior. If it's an organic base and a neurological, type base where someone just does not have the attention to maintain the focus in the kitchen. So in that case, someone should probably be supervised, just have like a buddy in the kitchen to make sure that they don't walk away from an open flame. I see that there's Betty is saying ads on Facebook for special cloths to throw that are more effective than fire extinguishers. I don't know actually about that, Faye, but I do have some ideas for easy fire extinguishers, because the ones that we ordinarily use are, I don't know about your case, but they're kept in the back of my cabinet, and it's kind of hard to get to. Well, so this slide, just kind of moving on. I think we talked about this briefly, but if you do have little ones, grandchildren, great-grandchildren that happen to come over in your cooking, make sure you're using those back burners and turn that handle to the back, because they sure are curious and will reach up there and touch whatever they can to try to help. So this is the slide I wanted to show you guys. The typical fire extinguisher, ideally it's supposed to be posted on the wall, but we don't want that on the wall in our kitchen, right? So most of us have it stuffed underneath a cabinet. So if there's a fire though, it happens really quick. So you have to get it out, make sure it hasn't expired, and spray it. So what they've come out with is this easy fire spray, which I just love. It's through First Alert, but there are a lot of other varieties, about, $10 or so. And it's like Pam spray, basically the size of that can. You can just leave it on your counter, have it right there accessible when you're cooking, and spray if there's a fire. Real easy to use. So hopefully that kind of answers the question and concern that some of you had. You could try that out. It's lightweight and much more user friendly. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not always checking when my fire extinguishers expire, because they do. So, institutions will have someone that goes around and kind of checks and tags them and makes sure that everything's in working order. We tend not to do that at home. So maybe just having a can of that easy fire spray would help. And just, a cause of fires just in general is, believe it or not, people not having working smoke detectors and not working carbon monoxide detectors, common in the Atlanta area. So just wanted to kind of throw out that as a reminder to make sure that you have it. Last night, when I was involved with a lecture, and one of the professors was talking about a client whose home he went to, and he said the gentleman was having a really hard time reaching the batteries to change the smoke detectors. So we said the solution for this guy was to just remove the smoke detector from the ceiling and just put it up high on a cabinet that he could reach. So we all thought that was a pretty good idea. Smoke still rises, so it would still be effective. So there are a few types of automatic oven stove turnoffs that I wanted to tell you about. One is called Fire Avert, and the other one is called iGuard Stove. So Fire Avert is basically a smart plug, and they have these for the stoves, but also for microwaves. It was originally on Shark Tank a few years ago. The thing with this is the plug needs, you'd have to have Wi-Fi in your house because it synchronizes with the smoke detector. So it detects the smoke, and then it cuts off the power to that item. It's good for electric and gas stoves, also microwaves, and will turn off the appliance. So you may think about something like that. Microwaves, believe it or not, are a significant cause of burns for those 65 and older. It's sometimes by putting things that have metal in the microwave, or you don't realize it has metal, like a bowl that has flecks of metal. In the knowledge to just unplug it and not open the door. I think if there's a fire, some people tend to, oh, I better open it and, you know, take care of it. It's like, just no, just unplug the unit and keep it sealed if there should be a fire that starts. The other concern is the steam burns, according to, you know, the fire marshal. So make sure that the food is allowed to rest after it comes out of the microwave to let the steam dissipate. And I just showed you a picture of this microwave because there are so many out there that are very high tech and they're wonderful, but sometimes simple is good. So this one just has a basic handle with a good grasp where you don't have to press it with the small joints of your finger, and then simple buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're done. Green to start, red to stop, just kind of like that. You could also modify your own microwave if you wanted by putting a little red sticker on it that shows where the stop button is and where the green button is, or perhaps where the 1 minute or 2 minute heating is. So if someone in the home has difficulty with the microwave, they know just press the bright sticker and the start and just kind of simplify your own microwave. So this is the other item that is, it's kind of the high-end unit. It's called iGuard stove, and it really does everything. This is ideal for someone who wants remote access. So say mom lives in California and you want to make sure that mom is turning the oven off before she goes to bed. So there's an app. So daughter's in Atlanta and she can watch on her phone to ensure that it's turned off, or if it's not, the daughter can turn it off on her phone. This also has a motion detector built into it. So if say mom has a routine that she gets up at 8 o'clock and goes into the kitchen and gets her coffee, that daughter will be able to look on her phone and see that motion has been detected in the kitchen each morning. So it really, it serves quite a few purposes. It can also, yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, it does a lot of different things, but it's an option mostly for remote access. And then here are the good old timers. The egg timer on the left, but that just does one ding, right? And so I believe that people that have low hearing, low vision, or low attention could benefit from a different type of timer. So there are portable timers that have very large numbers, which I think is very helpful. Also those with larger, louder alarms and that don't stop until you come and turn them off. So those are available on Amazon, and I think that they could be a good option for your kitchen too. Also, if you're tech savvy, which I know some of you who are on the call are, Jim, I know you have this in your kitchen. So you could use Google Assist, Echo, Alexa to help you with setting timers, with recalling recipes and that kind of thing. Very helpful. And a few gadgets that I thought I want to show you that I think could make meal prep a little bit easier. So some of you have who have been in functional independence classes knows how much I like this type of product. This is the OXO brand that offers a larger grip and a resistive handle. This is a peeler. You remember the old ones that have kind of just a metal handle, much harder to grasp. So this is designed for a larger grasp, a firmer grasp, and I love it. And so they have many different items other than just the peeler. So any type of rubberized handle would be more beneficial than not. You could also, just for making life simple, if you don't like to sit and chop, like I don't, you could spend a little more money and get some pre-cut or shredded items from the store. There are also some cut-resistant gloves if you happen to be interested, if you're worried about nicking your fingers as you go along. Sometimes magnetic measuring cups and spoons can be helpful to keep track of. Using a slow cooker is also a nice option. You just kind of throw it in and let it be. And then also the different types of timers that we mentioned, and then a few different jar openers that I will show you. So this item on the left, those in the class have heard me talk about this material. It's called DYCEM, DYCEM, and it's a rubberized material. It had been used in industrial industry, and then somehow translated into the rehabilitation world where I live. And so they have jar openers, which I think are absolutely fantastic. I have one downstairs. They have this size, which is for a traditional jar to open, and also smaller ones that open cans and can also help with opening tops to medications. So it came the day when my big strong boys moved out of the house and left, and I thought, who's going to open the jar to my sauce? And so anyways, I tap it and do all my usual techniques, and I don't need to do that anymore. I just grab my DYCEM opener, and it's fantastic. The other one that's pretty popular is the under cabinet jar opener. I did a little survey with some occupational therapists that I am in contact with online, and asked them what their favorite jar opener was. And the answer was this under cabinet jar opener. And they liked it because it's one-handed, it is arthritis friendly, and it's under cabinet. So you really don't see it. It's a very simple concept, but it works really well. And some low strength cutting boards. This is more of a specialized device, but I thought I'd show it to you just so you're aware that it's out there. If someone has significant difficulty with their hand or hand strength, there are specialized cutting boards that will actually hold items in place. So there's this clamp on the right side of the screen where you could clamp whatever it is that you need to cut, and then cut the item with one hand. There's also nails that come up from the cutting board, as you see here, that will stabilize the item. You can put an apple on there, you can put an onion on there, and then use the one hand to cut. If concerned, if there's an issue where you're concerned about someone scalding themselves, there are little valves that you can add onto your faucet. It's called an anti-scald valve, or use a motion activated faucet to mix the water. Kind of moving on again to those little ones being around the house, but this could also be helpful if you had company. This is just a little bit of a guard. With this type of stove, it protects a child from obviously touching that hot pan, or knob covers to unintentionally turn on the stove. We've had some clients say that they have newer stoves, have had people in their kitchen, company, and then leaning up against them, and they've actually turned on. So these are real inexpensive and easy to find on Amazon. And then just a couple items for self-feeding, since that kind of ties in with the kitchen idea. Some folks, again, with decreased ability to feed themselves or to grasp, there are large handled utensils like these. Also different types of plates for self-feeding. If food is falling off the plate, there's these specific plates that have a raised rim, which could be helpful. And I'm showing you this just because I think this is a really creative idea. This is called a nosy cup, and this is designed for someone who would have difficulties with their neck and extending their neck, the motion we need to sip a cup, right? And so this allows a person with neck problems, even if they have no movement of neck extension at all, they can hold the cup and drink out of this nosy cup. And that little cutout there is where the person's nose would be. So it's just kind of a fun item, and wanted to show you that. So I know I didn't cover the full design of the kitchen. Maybe I can do that next time, but hopefully some of this information has inspired you to maybe make some simple changes to your kitchen to make it work better for you. So I want to thank you, and see if we have any questions up there in the chat.